So obviously we have a lot of talk at these events about hacking and threat landscape and how that's evolving and how it's all terrible and there's loads of bad things for us to deal with. And then you have loads of people selling you tools to say this is how we fix it all. I want to do something a little bit different today and talk about some of my thoughts on how we can be more successful, how we can bring security more to the forefront of our organizations. So that's kind of where I come up with the title, because obviously we'll still be doing security, but I think the future of security and how we succeed in security is by doing a lot of things around it, from people skills to engaging with the boards and all that kind of stuff. So yes, basically how do we do better, how do we do more, how do we become genuinely part of the business, and how do we succeed, which obviously means we then succeed at being better at solving all the problems we love to talk about. So who am I? I love a motorbike. I have a friend of mine who's great at photography, makes me look really cool. But yeah, like everyone, I wear a lot of hats. So I'm a father, I'm a husband, athlete in inverted commas because I love training, but let's be honest, I'm not really an athlete. Bike rider, I coach people both in terms of sports and at work. CISO, obviously that's why I'm here. Lifelong learner, I love to learn new things, I love to hear people's perspectives about stuff. And I'm both mentor people and a mentee as well. So like all of us, many, many hats, no one person is one thing, and you shouldn't put too much of your identity onto like being this or that or the other. So this was a bit of a joke. So the future of security is AI. Obviously it's not, AI is very much part of it, but I thought I couldn't have a talk at this time of, where we are in the industry and not mention AI in some way, shape or form. So it'll definitely be part of what we do, but it's not really the point of what I'm talking about today. So it's automation though. So one of the things we can do as an industry and as people is how do we think about being more efficient? How do we think about automating our tasks, which I'm sure you have plenty of people talking about in terms of tech. But how do we enable other teams? So self-serving things. One of the big successes we've had is enabling access to a lot of our data to our engineering team. So we don't have to tell them what to fix, they can go and find out, that kind of stuff. So how do we enable teams? How do we automate stuff? How do we do self-service? And obviously when it comes to the business, that means we can enable us to move fast and safely, which is a great message because obviously we have a lot of security says no, security slows us down. So if we can demonstrate how we can speed up the business and enable us to move quickly and safely, that's a real big win for us. And one thing we're talking about a lot of work is it's very much not about reducing our teams because we're all overworked. It's about how we can do more with less. We love to talk about how we can do more with less, how we can be more efficient. So automating an AI can genuinely help you do more as a team. It's about being really realistic. So we love a headline. You know, LinkedIn's full of people with hyperbole of whether it's talent shortage or this crisis or that crisis or this thing, which often doesn't materialize into the world ending because we're all still here, right? So be realistic with your business. Be realistic with how you talk about stuff. Just because we think something's a big deal, we need to understand how it will impact our business, how it plays into the business's wider risk landscape, and what's really happening. You know, new Chrome 0 day, which happened to be one this morning, I think. But is it the end of the world? Is it really going to smash your business? Do you have to stop everyone working right now, or can you be a bit more kind of calm in how you deal with some of these issues? It's all about that priorities and context and how we appropriately prioritize stuff to the rest of the business. It's about being part of the business. So we all talk about this. We all say security should be part of the business, security should do this. But how many teams find themselves kind of a bit in the corner and we're not really integrating, we're not talking the right language, and we can't expect the business to come to us. We have to go to them. We have to talk in ways they understand. We sit here and talk about 0 days and cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgeries and SQL injections and whatever else. And to most people, it doesn't mean anything. So how do we get them to understand what they need to know? You know, we're chatting at lunchtime today, and you often find security people, and we want people to understand everything. We want them to know loads more than they need to know. So how do we distill that down into what the people actually need to know, what matters to them and their role? Think about like a car analogy. If you're driving around, to be safe, you need to kind of pass your test, be reasonably observant, get your car MOT'd and serviced, replace your tyres when they replace and that kind of stuff. It's very basic. You don't need to understand the intricacies of like traction and G-force and where your braking point is for the corner. You don't need to be a Formula One driver. You need to just understand the basics. So we need to get better at distilling down what are the basics, what does each different part of a business need to know, and how do we help them understand what's important, and even more than that, the why. Why is it important? And following on from that, it's about being part of the value proposition. So as a business, you know, if you have business partners or you're a B2B business or a B2B2C business like my world, you'll have requirements from your customers or your vendors or your clients, that will expect you to do certain things. So rather than just kind of like doing the security DD in the corner, be front and center. Talk to the business about how you help them help them get the contracts, about how the contractual requirements that help you get clients are being met by the security process and security things you do. Ensure people understand that you're part of that proposition. You wouldn't get these contracts without doing the right things. Client and customer trust. We all like to be a trusted brand. Every brand will talk about wanting to be a trusted brand. This is how they live it. This is how we be that. We're front and center of our organizations being trusted by people, by being able to demonstrate we do the right things. Even in times of crisis when something goes wrong, if you're open about what went wrong and how you're improving and that you were trying to do as much as you could and everything else, it doesn't cause a bad impact to the business usually. Sometimes it does, obviously, if you're out of business for a long while, but you see the tiny blip in the share price, whatever, and it's back to normal. But then you see when people handle it badly or they clearly haven't done the right thing, it can have a longer-term impact. So yeah, again, going back to that moving fast and safely. And then certifications. So whether it's ISO, SOC 2, or whatever else, again, this is how you demonstrate you're doing the right things to, if you're regulated, to regulators, if you have clients to clients. So all the stuff we do, we can use that to demonstrate our business doing the right things and why you can trust our business and why you should work with us. It's all about the people. I put it all in capitals for this one because it really is. Whether it's your people are at first best line of defense. I think, if I was listening correctly just now, they're talking about how phishing simulations, you should reward people who report it, not punish people who click, right? So how do you turn that around? How do we help our people be engaged? How do we treat them better? How do we reward the good behavior? How do we partner with them? So we're a partner, we're part of the organization. We're not sitting saying, don't do this, don't do that. We're working with them on how to do things safely. That no-blame culture, it sounds really trite, but it actually works. If you genuinely, you can see it. If you work somewhere, I'm lucky enough to work somewhere like that at the moment. If you work somewhere with a no-blame culture where people learn, you can make a mistake, and rather than hiding it and being like, I better not talk about it because I'll get in trouble, people are open about it, and you have the wash-ups afterwards and work out how to stop it happening again. So you learn from it. So how do you build that culture from security where people know they can always come to you, and we'd rather you speak to us and tell us about something that turns out to be nothing than you hide something that might not be. And also remember our people. So we're all part of security teams and security organizations, and we're people too, right? So we also need that care. We also need to feel part of the team. We also need to feel the love. Anyone who sees the stuff I put on LinkedIn and things will know, a lot of stuff I talk about is mental health and well-being and how you look after people. It's a stressful industry. So what are we doing to look after ourselves? What are we doing to look after our team members? It's all about psychology. So following on from the people, a lot of security is psychology. How many attacks are social engineering? That's psychology. That's you tricking someone to do something. The classic carrying some boxes so someone holds the door open for you, or even simple phishing emails usually have a sense of urgency or a sense of something bad will happen if you don't action it. So getting people to do what you want is all psychology. Whether it's bad people trying to do bad things and getting you to reset an account that's not yours or whatever else, or whether it's good people trying to help you do the right thing. I heard a stat. I don't know how super accurate it was, but apparently in psychology, reward is 20 times as powerful as punishment. So by building that culture where you reward good behaviors, and you obviously sometimes if someone does something completely outrageous, you might have to punish the bad behavior, but much more, let's learn how we reward good behaviors and drive good behaviors by having a culture of rewarding and gamifying and whatever else, so people want to do the right thing because it gets recognized. Too often, it's like the news, right? All you hear is bad news because that's what makes news headlines. But there's a lot of good happens in the world. Every day, if you look for it, with someone holding the door open for you, you see someone helping an old lady over the road or whatever else. All these things, there's good things happening all the time, but it's not what people write about because it's not what gets the headline. It's not what gets people up in arms. It's not what gets the clicks. But we need to change that narrative to being, how do we build that culture where we will reward and look out for good behaviors and people want to do the right thing rather than always doing the stick. And that learning, not blaming. So as touched on before, how do we learn from these things? Often you'll find if a team's making mistakes or has clicked the wrong thing or done the wrong thing, and you're like, oh, why are they doing such a bad job? But then you look into it, it's a team of 6, and 2 people on holiday and 2 people were sick at the same time. So that 2 people are carrying 6 people's work, and no one noticed, and they're just massively overworked. So looking behind what caused the issue and how do we improve it and fix it and support people. It's all about cognitive diversity. So we all know this, we all talk about this. Every organization has various diversity initiatives, but they're usually based on really obvious traits, like women in tech or whatever else, which is a great thing. We need to have equality for everyone and fair for everyone. But it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. The things that you measure aren't necessarily the right things. You can have a bunch of people who all look different but are from a very similar background who have fairly similar ways of thinking, whereas you could have some people that look similar but have very different backgrounds and very different outlooks. So I always use the example, when I used to do CrossFit coaching, there's a guy called Ravi in some of my classes, and he was profoundly deaf. And I'd keep making mistakes. I'd shout across the room at him. I'm like, what am I doing? He can't hear me. But he looked like a middle-class white boy. So if you had him sitting next to me in office, you'd be like, oh, there's just two middle-class white men in office again. But his way of seeing the world was so completely different to mine. So really think about how you look at cognitive diversity and how you ensure you get people from a wide range of backgrounds in terms of how they think, how they look at problems, how they approach things, how they like to communicate. But it's hard. If you get a team of people all like you, it's great. They're like, hey, Kev, great job. Well done, Kev. We love your ideas, because we all think the same. But you don't want that. You want a team that's going to challenge and be like, nah, Kev, that's stupid. You should be doing it this way. What about that? Why didn't you think of this? So you can have that, but it is harder because all the different ways of communicating and the different ways of thinking will mean you get different opinions, and sometimes people putting their opinions across in ways that other people will struggle with. So it's a hard work to build a really diverse team, but it gives you the best outcomes all the time. There's so many studies on it. So do your best to be part of that diverse team and really champion organisations that support this. But like I said, building diverse teams is hard. Failing because you all think the same is much worse, right? It's all about guardrails and guidelines. So a lot of organisations will rely on policies, right? Who's read all your hands up if you've read all the policies in your organisation that you should do. Exactly, right? So for anyone not at the front, no one put their hand up. So I don't know if that's because you're all tired from lunch or just because none of you have. I know I probably haven't either, right? So policies are hard, policies are dull, and policies are hard to change because they usually require a committee. You've got to write it, you've got to have approvals. Often has to go up to your ex-co board to approve it and change it. So they're slow and they're horrible and no one reads them, let's be honest. But guardrails are guidance. So rather than relying on policy for everything, minimize the policies we use. Obviously you have to have some, but keep them to the absolute minimum, the highest level you can, and then provide guardrails and safe guidelines so people know how they can work safely and within what kind of parameters they can do what they want within. But they're also quick and easy to change. So I'm reading a book about AI at the moment, and it's recommending the same thing. And one of the reasons is because you can change them quickly. So if we're in an evolving, quickly changing landscape, how do policies keep up if they've got any level of detail in? But guardrails and guidelines, this has caused problems, we'll just adjust that. And it's much easier to do so and quicker. So yeah, that bit of advice from me that I think helps you move quickly and safely again. So it's all about networking. Obviously, Joke's not here, but I'd be remiss in not saying this is not a great place to network, so it's a really good conference, well attended, but I'm talking about our work. So again, we're all busy. We all sit in our little corner doing our thing. You might report up to your boss. You might do some ex-co reports once a month and once a quarter and board reports. But how much time do we actually spend in security, getting out and networking with the rest of our business? Yeah. How often do you go and have a chat to understand what your HR leaders are struggling with, what problems they're facing? What about ops? There may be loads of people in ops. It may be a security thing, but this login takes 2 extra clicks than it should, and that's 1,000 ops agents wasting as much time every day. But it might just be more just understanding what their challenges are, being part of that conversation. And by understanding everyone else, you can understand how to best engage with them and understand what's their biggest problems. And it might be, why are they not dealing with the security things they should be, but they've got some other challenges that are way bigger that you weren't even aware of. And then by being aware of all of those challenges in the world everyone's operating in, we can be much more empathetic about it and understand why they might not jump on every security thing because they've got other issues that are even bigger. But yeah, do network here as well, and have coffee and drinks and stuff later. It's all about more. So as we touched on, we shouldn't silo ourselves. Most of us here have probably come from a variety of different backgrounds. Some people are technical, some people are not technical. Technical people may have done all sorts of different things in their life beforehand. So we've all got these backgrounds and skills and things way broader than security. So how do we do more? And I've seen an increasing number of CISOs, myself included, picking up things like enterprise technology and other parts. So we're kind of becoming CISO plus half CIO or whatever. But it doesn't have to be a formal thing. How can you offer to help? One of the big things is look for work. How can I help? How can I become valuable to the organization? Not just doing my little silo. And by being helpful to others, they're going to want to come to you and engage with you more. So yeah, there's 2 routes. One is formally owning more things. I think actually things like colleague tech sit really well with security because patching laptops, DLP, identity, all of those things are very security critical, but often not run by security. So I get a bit more say in how all those things are run now. So there is a really good argument for some of those things sitting with us anyway. But whether it's formal or informal, I think the more you look to how can I help, how can I be valuable in your organization? Look at the best leaders in your organization. They're probably not completely siloed, right? They're people who've helped in a wide range of areas. So signing off, the future of security is so much more. So that's kind of the point of this. It's not that we're not going to be doing security. I just think all of the things that make us successful are not strictly security, right? We get all the support for the things we're trying to do by being more than security, by doing psychology, by understanding people, by engaging, by networking, all of those good things. So if you want to succeed, and if you want your teams to succeed more importantly, because if you run a team, you've got a whole bunch of people who are reliant on you to set direction and to do great work. So find work, be helpful, be that person that people know they can come and talk to bounce ideas off. If you've got a range of expertise, share that. Reframe the narrative, I was touching on. It's how do we help the business? How do we enable the business to move fast and safely? We enable client trust, we enable customer trust. We reward good behaviors. So rather than like the security says, no, this is all on fire, change that narrative round. Yeah, be positive, lead with positive, lead with how we help, lead with how we support, because that's so much more powerful. You've still got in your back pocket all the fear and doubt, the fear and the world's going to end and 0 day and everything else, right? And even things like regulatory stuff and that. I always think the must-dos and the panic should be the last resort, and the leading with the positive and how you help and how doing these things are the right thing to do gets you a much better seat at the table than always being negative. So yeah, be part of that value proposition as touched on. Build diversity, be great leaders, support that, and support different people and help people understand everyone has different ways of communicating. You might have some people who love, I'm happy getting up and chatting here. Other people hate this sort of thing, but they're really good at, Slack messages or writing documents, whatever else. So enable people to communicate in a way that works for them, enable people to bring their best selves and provide their best ideas, and champion all of your people. Always champion your teams and your people because they'll succeed, right? If you're a manager or a leader of any sort, I don't succeed because I've done great work. I succeed because I help my team do great work. I'm never going to do the work of a team, but if they do great stuff, I shine. So if you're a leader's team, whatever size it is, recognize that you will shine by helping them shine. So yeah, be part of the value proposition. We help grow the business, not we say no. The end. Thank you. And cheers.